Okay, so this is a video on how to cut out your how to measure out your color recipes. So in the larimar tutorial, I had quite a lot of translucent, so like 300 parts of translucent to 60 white to 1 turquoise, and so it can be a little daunting to cut out all of those from a sheet of clay like this. So I found that there is a way of speeding up the process. So you always want to use the same sized cutter for all of your pieces. So you would cut out 1 turquoise like you would usually, so you just roll out a sheet, cut out 1 turquoise and put that aside. Now what you want to do for the larger amounts like 60 white or 300 translucent is you want to roll out a sheet of polymer clay, and all of the sheets of polymer clay that you use have to be the same thickness. So if your turquoise was on the thickest setting, your white and your translucent need to be on the thickest setting. So my turquoise was on my 3rd thinnest setting, so this one is on my 3rd thinnest setting. And you'll do with your translucent is you'll fold it in half. This creates 2 stacks. Okay. Then you'll fold it in half again. This creates four layers. Then you'll fold it in half again. This creates 8 layers. So now every time you cut out, you'll be cutting out 8 layers. So let's say you wanted to cut out 80. All you'd have to do now, since you have 8 layers here, is you'd only have to cut out 8 pieces. So that's 8 pieces, that's 8 pieces, that's another 8, and so on and so forth. So cut out 10, so that is 10 pieces, but each of the layers is 8. So if you put all of those together, it would contribute to 80 pieces of translucent. Then you would put that aside, and then let's say you wanted 1 part turquoise with it, so you'd roll out a sheet of turquoise on the same thickness setting as the translucent, and you would just cut out one layer, and then you put that with that, and then that would be 80 translucent to 1 part turquoise. So that is how I like to cut out my color recipes if I have a lot of one color to a little of another color. So I do hope that that will help you when you are cutting out your color recipes, because the color recipes for the larimar contain a lot of parts, and so it can take a long time. So I do hope that that helped, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Hi guys, Samantha from Jessima Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a pool water cane or high grade larimar. So what I've done over here is I have formed the start of a skinner blend using the colours that I gave you in the beginning of the tutorial. So this is colour 1, colour 2, colour 3, colour 4, colour 5, and then we have colour 6 over here. So like that. And what you'll do is you'll form each one of these colours into a triangle and fit them together like this. So I'm just going to put this one off to the side quickly, and just like you would with a normal skinner blend, you'll take the end piece and flip it around like that. But with this one, I'm going to trim off that excess so we just have kind of a half triangle down that end, because we don't want too much of that white. Then I'll bring over the other half, which is the more translucent end, and I'll trim this and swing it around, but I won't trim that end. So there, we'll have a skinner blend just like that. Then you'll roll it through your pasta machine like you would any other skinner blend, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so here is our skinner blend, and now I've used a lot of clay because I want to I just want to use a lot of clay, but you don't have to use this much if you don't want to. So now what you want to do is you want to fold it in half again, and then you're going to run it through the pasta machine, but you're going to be lengthening this because we want to make a skinner blend bullseye cane. So I'm just going to fold it in half one more time, and then I'll roll it through the pasta machine, from this end all the way to the next end. Okay, so now that is really long. So next step is to roll it up just like you would a Skinner Blend bullseye, okay? And you want to start from color number 1, which is the dark translucent blue end, and roll it up to the white end, and that is quite important. You don't want to roll it up the opposite way. Okay, so here it is now that I've rolled it up, and I've just chopped off the end so you can see what it looks like. Now I'm pretty happy with this, but it needs to have a little bit more definition. So I want to take color number 7, which we set aside earlier, and I want to wrap that around the outside of this. And this was run out on my 3rd thinnest setting. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place this down, pop this over here, and I bring over my tissue blade and I just want to trim away this excess. And now the reason this wasn't part of the Skinner Blend is because now I can control how much actually goes onto the outside of the cane. Because if it was in a Skinner Blend, you could end up with more than one wrap or less than one wrap. And so this colour is so close to colour number 6 that it's not going to matter that it wasn't part of the Skinner Blend. But it does mean that I have more control over how much of this actually gets added to the final cane, because the problem is that this colour is very opaque, and so you only want a tiny amount. So I'll just pop that onto the outside, and this will give us a little bit more colour definition. Now we've got a little bit of an air bubble around here, so I'll just slit that and get rid of those air bubbles. Okay. And now we want to just gently start reducing. And so I'll squish this end so that I almost want to form a wrapped sweet shape. So I'll pinch that end. And I'll do the same on this end. And what this is going to do is it's going to prevent distortion a little bit more. So I'll just roll into that section. I'll do the same there. So it forms almost like a candy shape. Now I'll reduce the middle section. And I'll basically reduce this down to about a 2 centimeter diameter. And then I will show you what I do next to get the larimar cane or the pool cane. Okay, so I've reduced it down, and so you can see we have these 2 ends like this, and this is what's going to help prevent distortion. So now what I want to do is I want to start from this end, which is going to be my thickest end, and I want to start reducing this down. And I just want to reduce it into a size of about 1 centimeter. Oh, not 1 centimeter, about 1.5 centimeter diameter. And the reducing doesn't have to be exact. There we go. Okay, so that prevents distortion to a large degree. And now I want to cut off a segment of this, and so that's what it looks like. So this end's a little bit mucky, but this end looks much better. And so this little outer layer over here will make sure that we have enough definition in our cane. And so now I'm just reducing this to about the same width, and now I'm going to take this one, which is the same diameter as the other one, but what I'm doing now is I'm reducing it a little bit smaller because I want size variance in our cane. Okay. And we're going to have to chop off this little end over here and keep all of these pieces. check that. And I'll cut off a segment. And then I'll do that the same for all of these, right down until about 1/4 centimeter diameter piece. So we'll see. There we are. So you can see how many different sizes we have over there, which is quite important for this cane because you want variance in size. Now I'm just going to trim off these ends to make them clean. And I'm going to start cutting this into sections. And now you don't need to make these sections equal. You want to try and make them equal, but you don't have to be pedantic about it, because if at any point the piece was too large or it was too small, it would be perfectly fine to just stamp it down or reduce it a little bit to get it to be the right size, because the more variance in size we have, the better, because it just makes it look more natural. Okay, cut that into 3. There we go. So now we've got lots and lots of pieces to work with, which is great, because we don't want to reduce this cane down too much. We want to have as large a cane as possible to work with. Okay, so I'll grab this, and the first one I like to just start off like this, just by kind of pushing the pieces together a bit like that. And you want to make it look mixed up. You want it to look as natural as possible, which means that you don't want two sizes of the same piece of cane together. So you wouldn't want these two together because they're too similar. So put that to a different side of the cane. And so it's important to make sure that you're varying your sizes. Now also, we want to reduce this ultimately into a square cane similar to this one over here. So when you're building it, you want to try and keep it in a square fashion, or at least have it end up somewhat square by the end. And this will just make your life a lot easier when reducing it. And try to get them all to fit into the holes, because you want to try and retain the round shape when you reduce it. So the better they fit, the better. So I'll just continue building this like I am until I have actually run out of all of my canes over here. Okay, so now that I have constructed it into a somewhat square shape, we can gently start reducing. First you want to lift it off the tile, and then you want to gently squish on each of the sides. Rotate, squish, rotate, squish. And you'll do this on one side, and then every now and then flip and do it on the other side. Now a quick thing that I did want to mention is that I have made this cane fairly short. So if you have trouble reducing, whenever you cut out these pieces from your larger cane, just make them a little bit longer and it will make your life a lot easier. But I'm quite comfortable reducing a cane of this size, so I like to not use up too much clay, and so I usually make my canes quite large but quite short. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just pressing it all together, and then every now and then press from the top as well, just to get it all stuck together. And then on each end, start pulling. And now because this is fairly short, I like to pull on each edge before I use the roller, and once it's a certain length, then I'll go to use the roller. And then I'll also use my hand to gently press down on each side. Then every now and then I'll press from the top just to make sure it's all reducing evenly. And then I can rotate and reduce. And you can see that it's reducing pretty quickly. Now we are going to have a little bit of distortion, but the nice thing about this technique, especially with the colours, is that you're only really using white, translucent and blue. So if you do have leftovers, which you inevitably will, you can always use it in a nice leftover technique. But if that leftover technique doesn't work, for instance, you can always just mix it up to create a really nice light blue, which is nice. So this will be our first cane with the larimar. Okay, and so I'm almost got it as reduced as I want it. I don't want this to be too far reduced, so this one is a little bit too small for me, because the problem is that you're going to have crossovers and it's going to show up in your bead. You want to be able to take a bead out of the entire slice of cane. So I don't like to reduce them down too much. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now we'll leave that to rest for a little while, and I'll bring over a sheet of white clay. Okay, and so here's a sheet of Prima white that I have rolled out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine. And this is what we will use. So I'll just put that off to the side for a moment while we cut out a slice from here. I'll just bring over my flexible tissue blade, and excuse me if my head gets in because I do need to see what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is I'm slicing towards you, whereas if I was slicing without the camera on, I'd be slicing this end, but then you wouldn't be able to see as well. So I'm slicing towards you, which means that I can't really see what I'm doing, and if you're doing this at home and not trying to demonstrate to somebody on a camera, you want to slice towards you. Okay, and this first slice is always not good, and then just take off those trimmings. Okay, so that will be okay to use. Now I just want to show you the difference between this one and this one. So these were basically made with the exact same piece of cane, but the difference is that this one was wrapped with that number 7 colour, while this one doesn't have that number 7 colour in it. So there is going to be a difference. This one's going to give you more of an outline for each of your pieces, which is nice. This one's going to appear a little bit more dull. So I prefer this one personally, but if you preferred this colour or this pattern and you wanted it to be a little bit more toned, you can always just skip out the number 7 colour. Okay, now we are going to try and slice a nice clean piece. There we are. And now I'm going to run that through the thickest setting on my pasta machine. And then I'm going to take it down to my 5th setting, and I rolled it through the first time from this end to this end. I'm going to rotate it and roll it through from this end to this end now. My thickest setting is a number 7. I am now down on my number 5. And I've rolled it through. I'm going to rotate again and take it down to my number 4 and roll through. And what this is going to do is it's going to stretch out the pattern, which is quite important, and it's going to make it nice and even. And it gives us a larger piece to work with as well, because we want to cut out each of our beads from one single piece. So I'm now just going to trim away these ends. There we are. Now note that this is going to go translucent when it is baked, so you've got to take into account that there's going to be a little bit of a colour change. So now I'll lay this down and smooth, and then I'll bring over a plastic bag, and I'll lay that over the top, and then I'll bring over the cutters. And the cutter set that I'll be using is this one, and this is available on my Etsy shop, Jessima Design. And I'm going to take the biggest cutter and see if I can fit it onto here. It's going to be a little bit of a stretch, So what I'm going to do to make this a little larger is I'm just going to stretch it like that. Then I'll bring over the plastic bag again, smooth that on, and that should fit quite comfortably. Okay, then I'll press down with even pressure so that I get a dome. And then I'll cut out the remaining bit with the cutter. There we are. And I'll put that white aside. And then I'll bring over my blade and just gently smooth off these ends. Because you're going to have little wrinkles and things left over. Okay, and there's a little wrinkle over here, so I'm going to try and smooth that out. Oh, sorry, my head was in there. Okay, I'll try and do this without my head getting in the way. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the surface and I want to try and get even and as smooth as possible. So I'll go around the edges and I'll smooth, and I'll make sure that I go over the top and smooth. Because you're going to be sanding and buffing this, so you need to make sure that it's as smooth as you could possibly get it. And we're going to give it a good sand, so any bits of grit or anything, or maybe you're smearing the clay a little bit, that will get sanded off, which is fine. Okay, now if you were to pick it up now, you'd probably smear the back. So I'm going to bring over a heat gun and I'm going to heat this. There we are. And it will just bake the surface part for us, so that once we've let it cool, of course, we can pick it up without worrying about distorting the shape. Okay, so it has cooled off, and so now we want to do the back. So I've got a piece of pearl white polymer clay that I rolled through on the thinnest setting of my pasta machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on top of it, and I'm going to bring over my flexible tissue blade because that would be easier, and I'm going to cut out a backing for this, and we'll put this aside for more beads because we're going to go through our entire set of cutters and create a bunch of beads. And then just tuck in any edges to make sure that it fits perfectly. There you go. And then I'll gently pick that up. You can see it back fits nicely. Now, because we just heat gunned the top lightly, the back when I picked it up was actually still raw, so this will bond perfectly well. Now just take some time to just gently smooth off this back, and this is why I like to heat gun it, because I don't have to worry about fingerprints ruining anything on the front. And tend to the sides as well, because we don't want to be doing a gessima smear on this, and so we want to make sure that these sides are nice and tidy, so that we only have to bake it once and then we can actually move on to sanding. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. now tend to the back's actual bit. Make sure that we get rid of fingerprints and things. Okay, and so that's nice and tidy, the edges are nice and tidy, and the front just needs a really nice sand. So this will go into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and as for the rest of the cutter set, I'll cut out 2 of each shape so we end up with an entire set. Okay, so I finished with the beads and they're all ready for the oven. So we finished making these ones and they were using this cane, of course. Now I've also made a different cane, and this one is basically the exact same as this one, except that we skipped the step of wrapping the colour number 7 around it. So if you want to make this cane, just do all the steps that were included in this one, but skip out the step where you wrap the cane with colour number 7, and you'll end up with this. And this is what we're going to use to make our larimar cane. So if you look at these beads over here, let me just bring them over. Yeah, this one's a good one. So if you look at this over here, the outline where we wrap the colour number 7 is quite bright, and so for larimar that's a little bit too bright, but for pool water I think that it works really well. So we want to go for something a little bit more like this one over here, where you can see that it's a little bit more smudged and just not as bright. So this one works for your pool water cane. Now we want to make the larimar ones. So larimar ones you basically just skip using colour number 7. So now what we'll do is we'll do the exact same as we did before. We'll take a nice slice out of this and we'll run that through the pasta machine on the thickest setting, then down to our 4th setting. So that it's like that. Then we'll bring over a sheet of clay which was rolled out on the thickest setting, and we'll cut out our beads. And so I will do that, and this will be our larimar ones. And then they'll go through the exact same process as the other ones that we made. So we have 2 sets now, and they'll all go into the oven for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature. Okay, so I've finished baking our beads, and so here are the 2 main pendants, and so you can see there is a bit of a difference between them now that they are baked. This one's a lot more subtle, while this one has quite a nice outlying rim. So depending on which one you like, you can either skip a step and create this one, or just add the outline of colour number 7 and you'll end up with a little bit more of a outline. So now what we want to do is we want to sand them. So I'll bring over my lowest grit, which is a 400, and I'll just start sanding in a circular motion. And I will sand the top, the sides and the back, going from my lowest grit, which is in this case a 400, all the way up to my highest grit, which is an 8000. And I'll do that with all of my beads. And take your time to do this, because the better you sand it, the better it will look, because we're not going to be putting resin or anything on this, so it's quite important that you sand this correctly. So take your time, spend about an hour doing it, and then I'll show you how to drill them. So the next step, after we have sanded and buffed these, will be to put a little bit of Renaissance wax on them. So you can see they're all nice and shiny now. See if I can get that to reflect for you. There we go. So they're all nice and shiny now. So now we're going to bring over some Renaissance wax, and using an old polishing cloth, just take a little bit of that, gently brush it over the surface. Now it's better if you have a buffing machine like a Dremel for this, but you can do it by hand. And you want to just rub it on, and then you want to, if you have an old cloth or something like that, then you want to take that cloth and you want to buff it. So if you had some old jeans, that would work as well. but you want to buff it as fast as you possibly can to get it to buff up. And you'll do the edges, back, and the side, and the front. And you'll do that with all of these. Okay, so now that we have popped some Renaissance wax on these, we can drill them. Now this can be a little tricky, especially when it's a domed bead, but you want to start on one end and drill almost like a pilot hole. Don't have to go straight through, just make a bit of a ding in the side of the bead, like that. Go onto the other side of the bead, do the same thing, just drill a bit of a test hole. And this I find helps. Now this is a automatic pin drill, so I can drill. I don't have to do it manually, it can do it for me, but I do like to do some of my drilling manually because I find that I have more control when I do that. So I'll drill a little bit in, then I'll do it automatically, and then I'll do it manually again because I can feel what I'm doing better when I'm doing it manually. So you'll just carry on drilling from each side, and you want to basically meet up the two holes. And this means that if you aren't drilling straight for any reason, you won't be able to see it, because the holes will meet up nicely in the middle of the bead. So if you ever made a mistake and didn't drill straight, you won't be able to see. So I'm just busy cleaning out the hole. And there we are, got a bit of a hole there and a hole on that side. And now you might lose a little bit of your shine when you're drilling it, so you can see this one's not reflecting as well on the top here where I've been gripping it. So just take it and give it a light buff on your jeans or something like that, and the shine will pop right back up. So I'm just giving it a quick buff, and there you can see it, the shine's come right back up. So just do that once you finish drilling, and I'll do that with all of my other beads. Okay, so now that we have drilled our holes, we can move on to stringing. And so what you're going to need is a piece of black Acuflex, and you're going to take a charlotte crimp and string it onto the Acuflex. Grab a crimp bead, string that onto the Acuflex and let it go down just a little way. Squish that flat, bring the charlotte crimp back up and close that over the crimp bead. Take a jump ring, open it up, slide it through the charlotte crimp, take a piece of your clasp, slide that onto the jump ring. Just want to make sure that that loop's closed properly. And then you can start stringing. And I've got some white howlite beads over here, and I'll just string on a howlite bead, then a larimar or a pooled one. The one that I'm doing here is the faux larimar one. The other one, which was a little bit bolder, is meant to look like pool water. And you'll just string them one at a time through the beads. Really quick and really simple and nice way to use these beads. It will draw the focus to the beads rather than the actual stringing design. And if you're having trouble for any reason getting your piece through, let me see if that will go through the other side, you can always just drill that hole larger. And once you've strung on all the beads, just take another charlotte crimp and pop that onto the Acuflex. Hole's a little small, so it can be a little difficult to get through sometimes. Then take the crimp bead, squish that onto the Acuflex, bring the Acuflex back up around the crimp bead, squish tight, take your other jump ring, open it up, pop it through, put on your clasp, and close it up. And that's all there is to it. And then just slide all the beads into place, and that is your necklace. So that's the faux larimar one, and this is the pool water one. So hopefully the camera can pick up the difference between these two, and the fact that this one's a little bit duller than that one, because it does make quite a big difference now that the entire necklace is together. And so that's basically it for this tutorial, and so I do hope that you found it helpful, and if you did, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do send me photos of what you do using my tutorials. I'd love to see photos of your pool water beads, and you can post those on Facebook. Just remember to tag me. You can also post it onto my website. I have a place where you can send in pictures on jessimatutorials.com, and just remember to tag me if you do post it on Facebook, because I always love to see it. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.